Hey guys, I wanted to make this video so people can get past their bulging discs and all their spinal issues that they're having. So let's just dive right in. Um, this is the 4-point transversus abdominis trainer. Okay, the transversus abdominis, this muscle, the idea of this is that we're building you from the inside out. Okay, so that you can avoid surgery, right? So when you pull your core in, you're activating that muscle, right? And what that muscle actually does is it decompresses your lower back vertebral segments. Okay, so for you to have a bulging disc, two things are happening. Number one, there's compression through the lower back. Okay, so that's number one. If you have a bulging disc, we have a quick, easy way to confirm. And it's real simple. You take your finger, place it in your navel or your belly button, and you just round over. That's right, round your spine, which you may be a little apprehensive about if you are watching this video. You round over and you pick something up off the floor, like say a baseball or some socks, okay? And you stand back up. And what you're looking for is the movement of your belly button. Now, there's three options. Your belly button will either pull in, push out, or it won't do either. It'll just stay the same, okay? What we're looking for is for your navel to pull in as your lower back rounds, okay? That tensions the mechanism that load shares and stabilizes and orients your back, okay? So if your belly button pushes out, no good. If your belly button doesn't pull in and it just stays the same, no good. And you need to do this exercise right here on the screen, okay? The 4-point transversus abdominis trainer. Really simple. You just pull your belly in, hold it for 10 seconds, and try to keep your spine in neutral. We'll talk about neutral spine. I have another video. If you send me a message, I'll send you another video on me coaching this exercise, and we'll talk about cueing and neutral spine and all that stuff. So if that interests you, if you're like, man, my belly didn't pull in, it's like, okay, well, if you load your body, your joints are going to get torn apart, because the primary load sharing system that protects your joints and maintains alignment of the pelvis and the rib cage and the low back doesn't work. And again, confirmation is as simple as, does your core pull in when you round your back? Really simple confirmation. Okay, now this isn't meant to be a comprehensive approach, right? There's other things that we would want to check out, but if you fail that test, you need to do this. In no circumstance would you not need to do this. Okay, so again, if you want cueing, just let me know. I'll send you that video. It's on YouTube. You can watch that. Now, again, this is specifically for somebody with a disc problem, right? They're gonna have this issue. Go ahead. If you have a disc problem, check it out. You're gonna fail the test. Your belly's not gonna pull in. Okay, and then from there, you got to say, all right, well, what's next? It's like, good question. So now that you spent enough time building strength in this muscle, and you progress to this one, and then you progress to that one, right? And then you progress to this one, and then maybe you run this circuit here 3 times a week, right? For 3 rounds, okay? So now the deep core has strength, right? So then what we need to do is balance your posture, okay? So after the deep core works, we have to, okay, so after you have restored function to the deep core and the inner unit, we want to look at the outer unit. We want to look at the sling systems of your body, okay? So you got a few of them, a few systems to restore function to. You have the deep longitudinal system. that kind of controls SI joint form closure or the natural closing of the SI joint so that you don't get SI joint pain and inflammation, right? You have the posterior sling system, which is this guy right here, the lat to the opposite glute, that again assists in SI joint stability. You have the anterior oblique sling. So if you think about throwing a ball, your right arm throws, your left leg comes forward. That's a function of the groin musculature. And this, the internal oblique, external oblique, and groin right here. Okay, that's the anterior oblique. Then you have the lateral system. Okay, so you've been told by your chiropractor, hey, you've got a hip hike, you've got a posterior lateral disc bulge. Well, we fixed the system that will help decompress, but we still have to fix the rotation that's there. And that comes with balancing the sling system. So if you have a right hip hike, for instance, you're going to have a left dominant lateral sling system. So we have to strengthen the right sling system. Okay, so this is the lateral system, right? So you can see here, quadratus lumborum, gluteus medius, and groin working together to elevate the pelvis and bring the leg forward. That's natural. The pelvis should elevate on one side, then the other side as you walk and run and go upstairs and all those things. If that doesn't happen, you'll wear out a knee, you'll wear out an ankle, you'll wear out a hip, you'll wear out something, because there's range of motion that's been lost at the level of the spine. So anytime you lose a range of motion, you got to pick it up somewhere. Okay, so then the knee will over rotate, or the ankle, you'll collapse an arch, you'll get worn out meniscus, right? Because the system isn't firing. So first things first, restore deep core function. Second thing, balance the sling system. So if you have a hip hike right, that means you're going to have a rotation here. So your left arm will be forward, right? Your right arm will be pulled back. Okay. That's going to hike that right hip up. If you have a right hip hike, you can see here your left glute's your dominant glute. You can even see, that's a good image. The artist did a good job. The obliquity in the pelvis as the person walks. Okay. So you can see that on the side that she's basing on, that's the lower pelvis. Okay, so this leg's going into swing phase, and this pelvis is elevated so that it can move across the sacrum. Okay, so you can see here, if you have a hip hike, you have a sling system imbalance, or if you have a scoliosis, all it is a sling system imbalance. Now, if you don't fix that, you're gonna get bony deformation. You're gonna get all kind of fun stuff that you're gonna need a really good therapist to unwind for you. But at the end of the day, this work has to be done for you to become pain-free. Deep core function must be restored, and sling system balance from left to right must be restored. So if you have a right hip hike, you need to practice driving off your left leg, or excuse me, your right leg, doing some box step-ups. Or if you have an anterior oblique sling imbalance, you got some tight external obliques and opposite internal obliques and groin. If you have a tight groin, that's probably the easiest way for you to be able to tell if that groin is tight on one side relative to the other. You're going to be rotated into that groin at your trunk. Okay, so what do? Well, let's practice rotating the other way. Let's do a little bit of lunging with the opposite foot forward, right? And, there's a lot more to go into that, but that's the easiest way to say it. Restore deep core function, and then put the opposite foot forward and get good at lunging with that foot forward. Okay, so if your right groin is tight, you got to get good at your left foot forward lunge. Pretty simple. And then if you have a right hip hike, you got to get good at driving off your right leg. Okay, so again, that would be a left foot forward lunge. If you have a right hip hike, that's what you got to get good at. All right. Or you could do some cable pulling with your right leg forward, pulling with your left arm. There's a lot you could do. Now, you can see here, like if somebody's working, you got, oh man, I work construction, or I'm super active, I throw a lot, whatever, the same rotation pattern, whether you're swinging an axe or throwing a ball, is present. Okay, so if you do too much again and again and again, and you don't balance it out, you're going to create a hip hike and a rotation in the system. It's really straightforward. So if you test your core and it tests functional, you can just jump right into this phase. All right, but odds are, if you have a diagnosed disc bulge and you're in pain, it's your deep core that you're going to have to start with before getting into this work. Okay. So this would be what the anterior oblique sling looks like. So this is a left foot forward activity, okay? If you're walking upstairs here, this would be a right lateral system activity. You can see that left QL opens and hikes up that left hip as that left leg goes forward. Right gluteus medius and right groin stabilize the pelvis here so that you can produce force, okay? Let's see here. There's a lot to talk about, but this is just really basic stuff that you have to know. So if you need to strengthen because you have a right hip hike, that means you need to get really good at driving off your right leg to strengthen your right glute. Okay, one of the ways you can do that, this would be an exercise for the posterior oblique system, your left lat and your right glute. If you have a right hip hike, this is right here, you need to learn to push with that right arm. Okay, so this is left foot forward activity. This would be right anterior oblique sling, right lateral system, and right posterior oblique sling. Pulling with the left arm, pushing with the left, or excuse me, with the right. So, oh man, this is a fun one here too. This is all about counter rotation. So you're really overloading this right glute, and the left lat is really having to come online to keep your spine from twisting, okay? So this is a nice counter rotation exercise. I wouldn't recommend playing with that one too much without coaching. But again, if you have a right hip hike, these are really good exercises for you, provided you've done the other stuff, the deep core work, okay? So that's really important. That last video that I put out that kind of went over the deep core, it's very important to do that first before jumping into force production and force generation, because if you generate force with an inner core dysfunction, the joints are out of place and they're just getting tore up. They're getting torn up. So it's very important, work on that circuit exercises. I have some videos on YouTube on how to execute. Then after you've done that for a month, maybe 6 weeks at 3 times a week, you can jump into upright vertical stuff, pushing and pulling and moving some weight. I do these, so I do cable pulls with 140 pounds for sets of 10, and I do cable pushes for 120 pounds at sets of 10. To put that into perspective, like that is the amount of weight you should be able to work without any pain, provided you have done things properly and you've built yourself properly. So this is the outer unit. Last video is the inner unit. This is really, really foundational stuff. In the first 4 weeks, I do this with people. You have, shameless plug, you have the inner core work to do for 4 weeks, and then you get into balancing your sling systems for 4 weeks, and then we move into strength building for 4 weeks, and then we move into performance level training for 4 weeks. So you can see it's very systematic and step-by-step to take somebody that is experiencing bulging discs, herniated discs, restoring the system that decompresses and orients the vertebrae, step 1. Step 2, balancing the sling systems. Step 3, then we get into some strength building. And then finally, step 4, month 4, performance. So pretty straightforward stuff. I hope you guys took something away from this video. And don't lose hope if you've seen a lot of therapists and you've seen, you know, a lot of chiropractors, you've been doing massage therapy and you have migraines and you have, you know, your doctor's like, man, we need to operate immediately. 95% of the time, this is what you need. And it's really straightforward. Inner core first, sling systems, strength, performance, and then you get to decide, what you'd like to do after that, because you're going to be 100%. So I hope this was helpful, and I'd love to hear your feedback if you have any. You'll have a